or not, the Congress Party remains adamant in its stand. It continues to demand that elections be held on ballot papers, even though there is a history of evidence to suggest ballot stuffing and booth capturing in the era when elections were conducted using ballot papers. The BJP seems to be using the allies, the very allies of the Congress Party, part of the India Alliance, first the NC, now the TMC, to say that the Congress does not have a locus on this issue. So the question that's being asked tonight, and that's our first debate tonight here on Brass Tacks, is it time for the Congress Party to finally give up on this EVM bahana?
The EVMs can't only be a problem when you lose the election. So when you get 100+ members of parliament using the same EVMs and you celebrate that as sort of a victory for your party.
जो लोग ईवीएम पे सवाल उठा रहे हैं, अगर उनके पास कुछ है तो इलेक्शन कमीशन को जाके वो डेमो दिखानी चाहिए। तो मुझे नहीं लगता है कि ये जो एलिगेशन है इसमें कोई सब्सटेंस है।
Other parties, our India Alliance partners like Samajwadi leader Akhilesh ji in the Lok Sabha, when we were present, he told him that we would have won through these kind of methods, but we wish that we will go back to the ballot paper. So this is the stand of NCP leader Sharad Pawar ji. This is the stand of Shiv Sena leader Thakre sir.
हम जब बोलते हैं उसको तो समझ में नहीं आता है। अभी तो इनका अलाइज ही बोल रहे हैं। At least now they should understand, they should realize.
नहीं वो EVM छोड़ दो, हमको EVM PVM कुछ नहीं, हमको होना बैलेट पेपर पे वोट बस।
All right, let's open this up to our guests, our full panel joining us on the first debate tonight on Brass Tacks. Siddharth Yadav is spokesperson of the BJP, Adil Singh Boparai, spokesperson of the Congress Party, Imran Nabi Dar, spokesperson of the National Conference Party, and we'll also be joined by Mr. Mohammad Amin, who is a former Joint Director and Chief of Protocol to the Election Commission of India. Adil, let me start with you, and I'm going to quote to you what your own ally, Omar Abdullah, the Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister, the head of the National Conference, has said, cannot blame EVMs alone for poll loss. Why blame EVMs only when a political party loses? Stop whining about EVMs and accept the poll results. This is not a BJP spokesperson or a BJP leader. This is your own alliance partner, Mr. Omar Abdullah, the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir. Adil, respond.
Zaka, I think this very question, this debate has been wrongly framed. The question which the country needs to ask and which all of us need to seriously consider is whether the election process has to be strengthened in this country or not. Our position is slightly more nuanced. The question today is that the purity, the sanctity, and the independence of the electoral process has to be safeguarded. There are numerous instances where we've seen a partisan ECI, and I'll just give you 2-3 illustrations because of paucity of time. Number one, you had a situation where Maharashtra, Jharkhand, Haryana, and JNK would go to polls together. In this occasion, you had Maharashtra and Jharkhand being deferred by the ECI for no obvious reason, number one. Number two, there have been numerous instances where the ECI's action has been differential, or should I say rather differential to the BJP. There have been instances where the ECI has turned a blind eye to brazen and blatant violations of the MCC by the BJP. So therefore, the question is slightly different. The question is, does the Indian...
But Adil, all of these instances that you just mentioned have nothing to do with the electronic voting machines. And you say that the Congress Party has a nuanced position on the EVMs. I want to quote to you the president of your party, Mr. Manickam Tagore, as recently as November 2024, he said, and I quote, "Let them keep the EVMs with them. We don't want EVMs. What we want is voting on ballot paper. Then the country will know what their position is and what our position is. This is the president of the Congress Party. There's hardly anything nuanced about it.
Please understand this, Zaka. If there are reasonable and credible voices in our electorate which believes that the process has been tampered or manipulated with, I see no reason why we should not adopt to a process which gains more credibility. At the end of the day, Zaka, the objective of this entire electoral process is that it inspires confidence of every citizen of this country. The question is not us versus them. Unfortunately, the media likes to see things in binaries. It is not us versus them. It is whether we want to strengthen the electoral process.
If it's a question of process and the vitiation of the process, and if the solution to the vitiation of the process is to go back to ballot papers, then maybe we should play out some visuals from the 80s and 90s where there was scientific rigging and ballot paper stuffing and booth capturing, etc. But anyway, let me now move on to let me move on to Siddharth Yadav and ask him. You know, the contention of the Congress Party. The contention of the Congress Party is, you know, the process has to be above board. There shouldn't be a shred of doubt about the process, and to ensure that is the onus of the Election Commission. They are citing instances, for example, in Maharashtra recently, where there were entire villages which said that not a single vote went to the opposition, whereas, you know, there were candidates who said not even their family members had voted for them, etc. These are anecdotal, individual, isolated cases, but even those, the Congress Party's contention is, Siddharth Yadav, are casting doubts or aspersions on the process, and the process has to be above board, otherwise democracy itself is under question.
Zaka, there is no doubt about it. But the reality is that the process is above everybody else. There are procedures laid down, the procedures are followed, and at multiple occasions the Election Commission has invited, the Supreme Court of the country has given its rulings, and the opposition was invited to pinpoint what exactly is the issue that they feel, where tampering can happen. Hackathons were done, but nobody came up, nobody came forward, and that shows that the reality, the issue is something else. Now, if I need to understand this issue, why is it that Omar Abdullah, who wins in Jammu and Kashmir, has no issue about it? Why is it that Hemant Soren, when he wins in Jharkhand, has no issue about it? Abhishek Banerjee was today speaking on the same lines as Omar Abdullah. He won in West Bengal and he has no issue about it. When Sukhwinder Singh Sukhu of the Congress Party himself is sworn in Himachal Pradesh, EVMs are absolutely all right. When Siddaramaiah is sworn in Karnataka, EVMs are absolutely all right. When Revanth Reddy is sworn in, EVMs are absolutely all right. So if I have to understand this, I think it is nothing more but of a loser's rant. I do not wish to use such strong words, but when processes of our country are questioned in a manner which are just for political gains, I think it is a very serious issue and political parties should take it very seriously. Why are you not participating in the hackathon?
Okay.
The Supreme Court is coming out and saying that you cannot have this policy that when you win, you are celebrating the EVM, and when you lose, the EVM is wrong. This is the Supreme Court, the Honorable Supreme Court of the country saying this. But the problem with the Congress Party is, and I'll just take 10 seconds, is there no expert in the Congress Party who can come out and say? Only political leaders have to come out and say, what is the issue? There are already processes, Zaka. The Form 17C is given to all candidates, all booth agents. Mock polling happens. All machines are matched with the control unit. And even if a candidate is not satisfied, 100% VVPAT matching is an option available once he applies. So you can do 100% matching of that. Okay. But you want to hide behind that the electorate had no confidence. The people have no confidence. The only thing the people have no confidence
What Siddharth Yadav was referring to
Gandhi.
About what the Election Commission, the Supreme Court,
of the country.
Mind you, the Supreme Court has gone into this matter on multiple occasions. As recently as November of this year, it made oral observations in a petition that was moved in the case of Andhra Pradesh, the elections of 2024, where Chandrababu Naidu and the TDP won. It was challenged in a public interest litigation, and these were oral observations made by the highest court of the land. When you lose, EVMs are tampered with. When you win, EVMs are fine. When Chandrababu Naidu or Jagan Mohan Reddy lost, they said that EVMs are tampered with. When they won, they don't say anything. How can we say this? This is the highest court of the land. So let me ask Imran Nabi Dar. This is similar to what your leader and the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Mr. Omar Abdullah, is saying, that it can't just be a loser's rant, as Siddharth Yadav put it, that every time you lose, then there is a problem with the process and a problem with the machine, but every time you win, then it's fine. Everything is hunky-dory.
No, I think we are missing a point here. Omar Saab has not said this for the first time. The interview that you are quoting, the PTI interview, he has said this earlier also. So this is not a new position that we are taking. Omar Saab said this before the J&K Assembly elections. Omar Saab is continuously saying this, that about the EVMs. The only issue that that concerns us right now is that we are trying to create us versus them scenario. Here, there is no us versus them. National Conference is very much part of the India bloc, and there are issues that can be discussed. There are opinions that might not be acceptable to the other party, but that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that we are against each other. We have our own viewpoint. In Jammu and Kashmir, Congress has a viewpoint which is entirely different from our viewpoint on many occasions. I mean, you are aware of the recent resolution that was passed in the Assembly. Congress had a different viewpoint on that. So it doesn't mean that
on Article 370, yes.
We are against each other. We have made our opinion. Umar Saab gave his opinion on the EVM issue, and we do not expect everyone to agree.
Imran Nabi Dar, there's a legitimate question that can be asked. Yes, no two political parties in an alliance, even the NDA has differences. For example, on Muslim quota, Mr. Chandrababu Naidu has a different position compared to the BJP. But that's not the issue. The issue is those differences are not necessarily aired in public. Those differences are not spoken about in an interview to a news agency. Those are spoken about in private. And even if those differences are there, at a time when the Congress party has been going hammer and tongs, and I quoted Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge, no less the president of the Congress party, saying, "Hame EVM nahi chahiye, hame ballot paper chahiye." In fact, went on to the extent of saying, just like there was Bharat Jodo, there should be a ballot Jodo Yatra. At such a time, for a key ally and a key member of the India alliance to come out and say this, the Congress's contention is, you are making Rahul Gandhi look bad.
I don't think anyone is saying that. I am sure that there would be discussions on it, and we are expecting that the meeting would be called out, and there has been no meeting of the India Alliance post elections. I think all these issues will be ironed out in the forthcoming meeting also. So I as representative of National Conference, I would just say that it is not that we would project it as a fight between allies. It is just an honest expression of opinion. Of different.
So before I go to Amin Saab, before I go to Mr. Mohammad Amin, who was a former Joint Director and also Chief Protocol Officer for the Election Commission of India. I'm coming to you, Amin Saab, in just 1 second. Here's a look back at the history of use of electronic voting machines. In December of 1988, when Rajiv Gandhi was Prime Minister of this country, the law was amended. The Representation of People's Act was amended, granting allowance for using electronic voting machines. The first ever general election, all India election to the Lok Sabha, where EVMs were used through and through, there was not a single ballot paper used in that election, was in 2004. And guess who won that election? The UPA, headed by the Congress Party, won the 2004 general election, the very first time EVMs were used in a general election. Since the year 2000, in state assembly elections, over 100, in fact, in 113 state assembly elections, EVMs have been used. Congress has won many, BJP has won many. EVMs have been used in 5 general elections up until now. So, Adil, the law was amended when the Congress was in power. The first general election when EVMs were used, Congress won that election. Out of the 5 general elections that we've had, 2 Congress has won and 3 the BJP-led NDA has won. And 113 state assembly elections have been fought on EVMs. Congress has won a lot and BJP has also won a lot. So there's simply no historical sort of evidentiary basis for now suddenly waking up and saying, oh, EVMs are the reason why Congress is not able to fight the BJP or Congress is not able to beat the BJP.
Zakir, in your list of dates, you forget that in 2009, Mr. Advani and several BJP MPs, and to just give you one name, GVL Rao, had made serious reservations about the use of the EVM, but that is not the issue. I am again repeating, we are not living in normal or usual times. And it is the consistent and the considered position of the Congress Party that in today's India, you have an institutional capture by the BJP and the RSS, where agencies have become handmaidens or footnotes of the BJP. Under these circumstances, and I've given you instances where there is no response from the ECI, where a level playing field has been altered. What is the Congress Party saying, and so are the other opposition parties, that the need of the hour is to strengthen the credibility of the election process. If the BJP is so confident about their own electoral fortunes, then why are they shying away from a ballot paper contest? I can turn that question around. The question today, which all this entire
but the ballot paper has been tried and tested and failed. It's like saying, cars cause accidents. Let's go back to bullock carts.
Zaka,
it's a regressive argument.
There are dozens. Zaka, there are dozens of Western countries, advanced democracies, which have reverted back to the ballot paper. We can have a debate on those issues. We can have a debate on the efficacy of the model. The question today is, you are living in a time of an institutional capture, where the BJP is completely turning the rules on its head, where a level playing field is being denied to the opposition. Today, unfortunately, instead of the government being in the dock, it is the opposition party which is put into the witness box and made an accused. This is the reality of our times.
No. See,
so, like I said, and this is what our leaders
Adil,
have
the
said,
point is, no one is saying that our electoral process is picture perfect. Okay, there are flaws. And there are very serious flaws. I, for example, think that this whole idea of putting limits just on candidates, how much money they can spend, and not on political parties, is an aberration. It's an aberration, it's a loophole that all political parties take advantage of. So if you really want to check the flow of money power and muscle power into elections, which I believe is the root cause of a lot of corruption in this country, at least in our political system, then you have to have limits not just on individual candidates, you have to have limits on how much a political party can spend to fight an election. But having said that, I mean, that's a debate worth having. But let me go to Mr. Amin. He's been waiting very patiently. One second, please. One second, Adil, please. Let me go to Mr. Amin. Mr. Amin, I had Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, former Chief Election Commissioner of India, on my show a few weeks back. And one of the points he made, of course, he's dismissed this whole thing about EVM bahana and EVM being hackable and all of that. But he did say that the onus of showing that the process is above board, much like Caesar's wife has to be above board, is on the Election Commission. And he said one of the things, for example, that can be done, and it might be slightly time consuming, but at least it will make the process appear squeaky clean, is why can't you have every polling machine to be matched with a VVPAT? Right now, I believe it is 5 machines in one booth out of randomly selected, not all booths, but in some booths, 5 machines are being matched, VVPAT and the polling machine, the EVM. Even if it takes 24 hours or 48 hours, why cannot we match every vote that has been polled into the machine, every vote that has been registered in the machine, be tallied with what has shown up in the VVPAT? All right, we've lost Mr. Amin's audio. I'll try and go back to that if we can get Mr. Amin. But Siddharth Yadav, this is a position taken by Mr. Qureshi, and he feels that the onus of the process appearing, not just the process being, but the process appearing to the common man to be above board, above question, beyond reproach, is for the Election Commission to take that initiative. And if it means that you have to match every single vote, every single EVM to the VVPATs, then so be it. And even if it delays results, that's okay.
No, Zaka, I'm not here representing the Election Commission, and I totally agree with what you were saying. The Election Commission, with what I have seen, has on multiple occasions invited all political parties, all political stakeholders, and has tried to give a voice to everybody and has also invited any objections that people had. Unfortunately, has become a trend that opposition parties never engage in such constructive meetings. Rather, they just to use this as a tool for media. That is a different thing altogether. But my friend from Congress Party, I feel, was saying that we should have a debate about it. Why are we shying? Let's have a debate about it. Why don't you start with Omar Abdullah? Then go to Hemant Soren. Then go to Mamta Banerjee. First, start a debate in the opposition. Is it just because you are losing, now you have to blame something and you are saying, no, we'll have a debate upon it. And Zaka, I say this with utmost responsibility. Everywhere, in any part of the world, if an election happens, if a party loses, if a leader fails, the leader comes out and takes responsibility. Unfortunately, in today's Congress, the Rahul Gandhi and under his leadership, the Congress Party has lost over 70 times. Now, he can't come out and say that I'm losing. He has never done so. So, he needs a scapegoat. And that scapegoat is, unfortunately, the election process of this country. It's unfortunately the EVM. Nobody in the Congress Party can come out and say that it is the Rahul Gandhi who has been failing. But now they want to do all the bashing against EVM. That is most unfortunate because you're keeping your interest over country's interest. You're keeping your family's interest over the country's
Amin's
interest.
line is back. So Mohammad Amin, please answer that question that I asked you. Even if it means a delay of a day or two or three, why can't we have every single vote be tallied with every single VVPAT machine that is available?
First time, I am going to welcome the Mr. Kharge's statement about the EVM machines, and he want to go back to the ballots. Actually, he doesn't know or forget about that. This EVM is started by the election in election commission by their own ex-prime minister. They have introduced the amendment of the bill, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, and this was introduced EVM. At that time, nobody can appreciate, like GVL Narasimhan also written a book, and this was inaugurated by the Advani ji, late Advani ji, the Prime Minister, ex-Vice Prime Minister of India. He has also accused a lot of things about the EVMs. So nobody has appreciated to EVMs, and I'm sure that now everybody is satisfied that all state chief justices has already given in advance. Now the Supreme Court has given the stamp on that. The EVM is correct. Nobody can change or nobody can do anything wrong practices with the EVM. EVM is just like electronic, just like a calculator. And if calculator is not attached with the, we can say internet, so nobody can hack or anything happen with the EVM machine. You are asking about the ballot after the EVM votes and the VVPAT. So there is no change you can find. Every polling after polling, every agent has to right to take, and our presiding officer is always giving to farm number 17, as you know, and everybody knows, and every party person knows. So I know that everybody is going to appreciate, not going to appreciate the election commission's working and their hard working and honestly working, but they are thinking if they are not working for the public, so public can go to elect them. That's why they are losing elections, and after that, the scapegoat is there, that they are always having the blame on the election commission officers, election commission machines, and election commission's process. Every process is very clear.
But what about the larger charge that Mr. Boparai of the Congress Party says that, election commission is not ensuring a level playing field. It changes dates. It clubs and declubs states in a way that they feel, the Congress feels, is beneficial to the BJP. They've given the example of Maharashtra recently, how it always used to go to polls with Haryana. They separated that. So basically, Congress is saying, okay, EVMs is one part of it, but the level playing field is not there to fight elections.
Which type of level playing they want? Every right has there. All the stakeholders from the Congress, BJP or other parties, everybody has. But election commission cannot give winning certificate to Congress or to BJP or to anyone. Who has get the vote, get the certificate from the election commission officers, signed by the election commission observer, and they are giving returning officer, he is elected. But how they can say that playing is not level given to anyone? Everybody knows. Even presiding officer is also giving all forms, all facilities to all polling agents from all parties. Every time. Why he is blaming for that? If they are performing, they are doing the work.
I'll give
Adil
the final word. I think the point that Mr. Amin made is a genuine one and a valid one, that after every round, both of voting and of counting, there is a Form 17C. At the end of the day, after the voting concludes, every political party's representative is shown the number of votes that have been polled in every booth. They all sign off on Form 17C. Then the machine is locked and it only opens on counting day after it's kept in the strong room. So the point is that at least the voting part of this process is certified by agents of every political party, including the Congress Party.
Zaka, this entire debate has to be seen from a non-adversarial perspective. Now, I'll just give you one more instance. Till last year, you had a collegium comprising of the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition, and the Chief Justice of India, which used to appoint the election commissioners. Today, the government of the day has even changed that system. The efficiency of any body depends on the people who man that body. Unfortunately, today, under the BJP, which has autocratic tendencies, they have manipulated and rigged the entire process of who mans these institutions. I again go back to the larger question. I have no doubt in my mind as a responsible citizen of this country and as an objective citizen of this country that there is a negation of a level playing field when it comes to the opposition. And this is not just restricted to the Election Commission. This includes the agencies, this includes the media, this includes
Siddharth Yadav, the IT, ED, CBI, BJP, uses these agencies to topple governments. Congress is giving the example of Goa and Madhya Pradesh and Meghalaya and so on and so forth. So it's not just about the Election Commission and not having a level playing field. It's also the fear that BJP uses these agencies to break smaller opposition parties. Siddharth Yadav, final word. I need to wrap up in 30 seconds. Yeah.
No. Zaka, how many governments were toppled? How many governments were suspended? Does the Congress Party even have the right to say this? The one party which has toppled most governments under Article 356 of the Indian Constitution, which never let any government of any opposing ideology to sustain in this country, is saying this at a time when the federalism is the strongest. No government in this country in the past 10 years has been toppled. No use of Article 356. So I think this is another rant of the Congress Party that they want to blame. No, all agencies are like this. Where were the agencies when you were in power? The agencies function like they function. If you have nothing to hide, if you have no problem at your end, you would have no issue. But it is that, since something has to be a scapegoat to save the Gandhi family, I think it is just that.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, Adil Boparai, Siddharth Yadav, Imran Nabi Dar, and Mr. Mohammad Amin for joining us. I want to move on to another story, and this is a controversy that's been in the making for a while. It also has the Congress Party as one of the players, one of the actors here. It's part historic, it's part contemporary. It's over some of these missing letters that were written by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, India's first Prime Minister, when he was in office. Now, some of the personalities that he has written these letters to include the likes of Edwina Mountbatten, who's the wife of the last Viceroy of India, Lord Mountbatten. There were letters from Nehru to Jayaprakash Narayan, to Babu Jagjeevan Ram, to Vijayalakshmi Pandit, a whole host of stalwart figures at that time. Now, the contention is that there were 50 boxes of such letters which were donated after Nehru's time, which were donated to what used to be called the Nehru Memorial Library and Museum. However, those letters, those 50 boxes of letters, were taken away from public access, first by Mrs. Indira Gandhi back in the 1970s, and then subsequently in 2008 at the request of Sonia Gandhi, who was at that time the chairperson of the UPA. Now, the contention by Sonia Gandhi, the Nehru Gandhi family, the Congress Party, is that these letters were private in their nature, and these were willed first by Nehru to Indira Gandhi and subsequently from Indira Gandhi to Sonia Gandhi as the custodians of those boxes, the custodian of those letters, and these letters were private in nature. They were not governmental or official communication in that sense, and therefore the family had the authority or the rights to decide whether the public should be given access to these letters. Now, the Nehru Memorial Library and Museum has now been renamed as the Prime Minister's Museum and Library. Of course, it showcases not just prime ministers from the Nehru-Gandhi lineage. It showcases all the prime ministers of India since independence. Now, they have written a letter to Rahul Gandhi, the leader of the opposition, requesting him to return these 50 boxes of letters back. And while action on that front is awaited, there's now a war of words between the Congress and the BJP. The Congress is questioning the BJP's sudden interest in these letters. The BJP says, what is there to hide in these letters? And the question we're asking tonight is, it's a fundamental question to this argument. Can Prime Minister's letters, when they're written in an official capacity as Prime Minister, even if it is personal in nature, can it be claimed as personal or family property, or is it property of the state?
रिक्वेस्ट किया था कि आपके द्वारा जो नेहरू कलेक्शंस में से करीबन 8 अलग अलग सेक्शंस के 51 कार्टून आपने विड्रॉ किए हैं, वो या तो संस्था को वापस लौटाए जाए या हमें उसे देखने की, स्कैन करने की परमिशन दी जाए, या उसका कॉपी आपके द्वारा स्कैन कॉपी हमें उपलब्ध कराया जाए।
The country really wants to know as to what was in these correspondence between, say, Nehru ji and Lady Mountbatten, between Nehru ji and Jagjeevan Ram ji. What were the contents of this letter that the first family felt that it should not be made public?
The RSS and the Godse Baat always wants to defame Nehru ji and Gandhi ji particularly, and they were trying to divert from the real issue of Adani Modi scam now.
All right, I want to go across to two special guests. We'll get both the historic perspective and the legal perspective on this. Vinay Sahasrabudhe is a former Rajya Sabha Member of Parliament and also a member of the Prime Minister's Memorial Museum and Library. And I'm also joined by Jay Anant Dehadrai, who's a lawyer in the Supreme Court. Mr. Sahasrabudhe, the contention that was raised by the Congress Party first when Mrs. Indira Gandhi was Prime Minister was that these documents were intended for safekeeping by her rather than to be given as a gift to the Memorial Library and Museum. That these documents could not be accessed by anyone without the express permission of Mrs. Gandhi back in the 70s when this was first given to the Museum and Library. And then subsequently in 2008, when Sonia Gandhi was chairperson of the UPA, she put forth the same condition when she gave these papers over to the Memorial and Museum and Library, was that these documents were intended for safe custody and not meant to be a gift, not meant to be accessed by the public. How do you respond to that?
I think that argument doesn't hold any water because all such documents which are essentially for private consumption kind of and should have limited access, one would keep them at home. If you are giving it to a public institution, which the Pradhan Mantri Sangrahalaya is a public institution, even in its earlier avatar as Nehru Memorial Library, then certainly, I mean, we are not a safe deposit vault of a bank kind of. We are a public organization, we are a library, and people come over there to scan through the documents, get to know, gather insights, have some deeper understanding of the things of those times, and therefore this argument doesn't hold any water that they were given for a safe custody kind of. If tomorrow every other politician tries to use our library as a bank safe deposit vault kind of, then what is the meaning of a library? So I think one should rubbish these kinds of arguments. If they were given to us, essentially it was for public consumption, and if they have been taken back as the correspondence of Mr. Rizwan Qadri suggests us, there must be some reason why they don't want public to be given access to that.
So one possible reason, and I want to ask Jay Anant Dehadrai this, that one possible reason could be the private nature of the conversations in those letters. Now, obviously, we know that part of these boxes had letters from Nehru as Prime Minister to Edwina Mountbatten, the wife of the last Viceroy of India, Lord Mountbatten. There were letters written by Pandit Nehru to Albert Einstein, Jayaprakash Narayan, Padmaja Naidu, Vijayalakshmi Pandit, a whole host of stalwarts at that time. But the contention by the Congress Party is, why is the BJP and now the members of the PMML interested only in the letters between Pandit Nehru and Edwina Mountbatten? They are chasing after some kind of salacious gossip or headlines. And because these conversations were private in nature, the family, who are the custodians of these letters, are choosing not to make them public.
Hi, Zakir. Good evening, and thank you for having me on your show.
The information is not correct.
Sorry, is that...
let Jay respond,
Yeah. Zakir, firstly, thank you for having me on your show. Here's what I think from a legal perspective, strictly speaking, and without wading into this political controversy that is now erupting between the BJP and the Congress. Jawaharlal Nehru was our Prime Minister for 16 long years. So all of the correspondence that emanated from his desk from the time when he took over as Prime Minister till, of course, he passed away when he was still in harness, is of great historical importance to India, not only to researchers, but in fact, to anybody that is interested in understanding how the politics of that time was shaped, and also to understand, how we have the policies that we ended up having after those 16 long years that Pandit Nehru was Prime Minister. So there is this incredible historical importance which touches upon many different areas. Now, insofar as communication with Lord Mountbatten's wife is concerned, Edwina Mountbatten, certainly if 51 cartons of correspondence has been taken back by the Gandhi family, as has been claimed, then I'm sure there would be a large number of letters between those two as well. And we know this now because it is in fact Lord Mountbatten's own daughter, Pamela Mountbatten, who's written a book about it and said that her mother and Pandit Nehru shared a very profound relationship and that they were deeply in love with each other and respected each other. Now, the point is that when you have the daughter of the Mountbattens herself making this really startling claim about Pandit Nehru's association with, essentially the last British ruler who remained in India, then I think it is of extreme historical importance. And I think we all deserve to know what's in those letters and to what extent Pandit Nehru's involvement was with the Mountbattens in terms of understanding how they influenced his decision-making. Nobody certainly is interested in whatever their personal equation may or may not have been. I certainly, for one, am not interested. But I'm extremely interested as an aware citizen in knowing how Pandit Nehru, if at all, was influenced by Mrs. Mountbatten on behalf of Lord Mountbatten. These are important issues. And one last thing, which is that, in the United States, Zakir, you have these presidential libraries that come up, which hold all of that archival content when a president demits office. And it is widely understood around the world, especially in democracies, that all of the material that is generated during the term, when the leader is in office, that belongs to the nation. And the nation deserves to know what happened, what were the decisions that were made, who were the people that their leader was corresponding, had correspondence with. So these are all very valid questions. And I think it's a little insulting. And this is my personal view. I think it is demeaning and insulting to me as a citizen that you have this family that will sort of decide when they want to donate something. And once you've donated it, legally speaking, it's not yours anymore. You've given it away. And once it's been donated, you can't simply change your mind at the end of, I think it was UPA 1, that tenure of 5 years, just at the end of UPA 1, that suddenly someone advises Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, that look, maybe there's something embarrassing or titillating or salacious in those letters that might embarrass us later and spoil the narrative that we've been creating for decades, that Pandit Nehru was this vaulted leader who did no wrong. So now please make sure that you take back all of that communication before any further harm is done to that image that the Nehru Gandhi family has created for themselves in India.
So I want to go back to the example that Jay had cited and ask Mr. Sahasrabudhe this. In the US, for example, there is a 50-year sort of cooling off period when classified documents that were given by presidents or by secretaries of state or any individual who was in government, after a 50-year period, they are then thrown open to the public. They are declassified. In India, we don't have that kind of a system where classified documents, after a period of time, after the after effects of those actions and those letters and those words are done and dusted, then as a matter of public record for for historians' interests and so on, those documents are declassified. We don't have such a practice. And the second point is also what Jay was referring to, which I want you to weigh in on, Mr. Sahasrabudhe, is the foundations of family foundations of US presidents. For example, Nancy Reagan had access to all the correspondence that Ronald Reagan had when he was president. She had access to all of it as part of the Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan Foundation. And then it is the foundation that took a call, ultimately, of course, in concert with the government of the day at that time. If there was confidential information which was, detrimental to the national security of the United States, then those letters are not released. But otherwise, the family gets to decide, or the family foundation gets to decide which letters to release and which letters not to release. Mr. Sahasrabudhe.
No, I think these are very enlightening examples of best practices elsewhere. And in our country, I don't know whether there are any rules and regulations about the archival collection and how it should be preserved and how it should be made available to the public. But that apart, when a particular set of papers is handed over to a public charitable trust called Nehru Memorial Library earlier, which is now known as Pradhan Mantri Sangrahalaya and Library, I think it becomes a public property. And all of a sudden you take it away, and for last 15 years you are just keeping mum about it. And let me set the record straight. What Mr. Rizwan Qadri, one of our colleagues in the Pradhan Mantri Sangrahalaya, has asked for is a whole set of papers which include correspondence between then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru with Jayaprakash Narayan, Padmaja Naidu, Albert Einstein, Aruna Asaf Ali, Vijaya Lakshmi Pandit, Babu Jagjeevan Ram, Pandit Govind Vallabh Pant, and of course Edwina Mountbatten. Well, the people who are now having the custody of it, they can say that certain letters with certain people we may not be able to make available, but others we can, and they can safely hand them over to us. Okay. Even one can see a point in that. But keeping a total mum and having some kind of a blockade, information blockade, indulging in that kind of a move, I think is just not acceptable in the era of transparency and accountability. And I believe that wiser counsels will prevail, and what is the property of Pradhan Mantri Sangrahalaya will be restored.
If this matter is not resolved between the two parties, which is the PMML and the Nehru-Gandhi family, and if this matter goes to court, and I just want you to think out loud as a lawyer from a legal perspective, can the family take refuge behind privacy as a fundamental right? Will it apply, for example, to dead persons? Both Pandit Nehru and Edwina Mountbatten are dead. The test of privacy, can it apply to individuals who are no longer with us, number one? And number two, the test of public good. What public good is served by releasing these letters, which, as the Congress Party argues, is very much private in nature?
Zaka, I think you ask an excellent question, and I think that's what it's going to boil down to ultimately. And in my mind, there is no doubt whatsoever that the public good in this case, in bringing out all of this correspondence, will far outweigh any privacy concerns that the Gandhi family might claim. And I ask myself this question: what privacy concern could possibly prevent any of us from looking at this very important communication between the country's first prime minister and between, in fact, I would stick my neck out and say this, that even the communication with Mrs. Mountbatten is very critical and very important, because it might put a lot of decisions that India made in the context, say, of the imperial powers and so on, in a new light. So why shouldn't this information come out? And the only reason that comes to my mind is that perhaps that there is a fear, that there will be a fear of embarrassment, perhaps a fear of something coming out that the Gandhis will be deeply embarrassed by. I mean, what else could it possibly be? And insofar as the legal test here is concerned, it has to be seen in terms of public good. This is, after all, historical material now. It concerns all of the communication between the first Prime Minister. And for 16 long years, he was Prime Minister. Let's not forget that. So there are so many decisions and policy decisions that were taken in that period that still have a bearing on the India of today. So it would be nice to be able to understand the context in which those decisions were taken and to understand how a person thinks, a leader thinks, or how decisions are made. You paint a picture by looking at all of the correspondence that person has done, their writings, and Pandit Nehru was a prolific writer. So we should have access to all of his writings, in my view.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Jayananda Hadre and Vinay Sahasrabudhe, thank you very much for joining us. It's a fascinating story. It has historians completely glued to the trajectory of the story and also legal aficionados as well, because ultimately I think this will end up in a legal battle for custody and as to who keeps custody of these letters and whether or not the Prime Minister's Memorial Museum and Library can have access, if not custody, but at least access to what these letters contained. We'll take a break here on the program. When we come back, it's an obituary to one of the legends of classical music in the world, in fact. Tabla maestro Zakir Hussain passed away at the age of 73. He was battling prolonged illness with heart-related ailments. He was 73. He breathed his last at a hospital in San Francisco in the United States. The legendary tabla maestro leaves behind a legacy that is cherished, it's respected by countless music lovers around the world. As the world mourns the loss of the legendary tabla virtuoso Zakir Hussain, on the other side, we pay a tribute to one of India's most revered classical musicians.
A plane up there, right? You see that? That's an airline, commercial airline. There you go, another one there. Now, that is not a commercial airliner. It's hovering, it's sitting right there. All right? And then you got more, a lot more. You got another one over here. Just hovering around, just hanging out. Airlines don't just hang out, and those aren't helicopters. You got several over here now that are flying around. Two there are flying, one's hovering. right, you see that? That's an airline, commercial airline. There you go, another one there. Now, that is not a commercial airliner. It's hovering, it's sitting right there. All right, and then you got more, a lot more. You got another one over here. Just hovering around, just hanging out. Airlines don't just hang out, and those aren't helicopters. You got several over here now that are flying around. Two there are flying, one's hovering.
Have with us someone who's among the first few names when you think of music. Ustad Zakir Hussain. Thank you so much for being on our channel, sir. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing fine. I'm in India, my home. It's the month of Guru Purnima, where we celebrate and honor our teachers, our gurus. And so I just finished a tour with our group Shakti. We are celebrating our 50th year.
Right.
And our new record just came out. It's called This Moment.
This Moment.
It's called This Moment. And so the tour was successful, and I'm home. And in spite of jet lag, it is great to be here, and looking forward to playing, celebrating Guru Purnima with my Guru brothers and sisters, and remembering my father, our Guru.
Yes, sir.
And also to doing the new piece for the new season of the Symphony Orchestra of India, right, here at NCPA.
Right. Coming to Symphony Orchestra of India, sir, you've been associated with them for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us what can we expect from you this time?
I have had the opportunity to compose one piece for them before. It was commissioned and it was called Peshkar. That was out and out a rhythm-oriented orchestra piece.
Right.
But this one is much more melodic, and the reason for that is because two of the finest young instrumentalists of our country, Niladri Kumar Bhai, sitar player, and flute maestro Rakesh Chaurasia, are part of this. They've agreed to do it. I'm really very, very happy and thankful to them. And so there is much more focus on the melodic element, and therefore a much bigger challenge when it comes to working raga modes with the Western sensibility of harmony and counterpoints and so on. And so I feel that if there are any two musicians in the world of Indian classical music who can adapt to that kind of mindset where they can interact with their Indian music sensibilities with Western harmonies and counterpoint oriented orchestral composition, then Rakesh Bhai and Niladri Bhai would be the two who would do that. So I'm happy that they agreed, and grateful to SOI for offering me to do this piece again. And after we premiere it here, we're going to take it to England and play it in 3 or 4 different cities there.
Wow. So you've been playing across different platforms, different stages, different countries. At any point in your career, have you had an experience where you had, you met with a different perspective of music, a different culture, and that has stayed with you for a long time?
There are elements of every genre of music, and therefore cultural, background of that genre of music that has appealing qualities. I mean, one of the most important forms of American music is jazz.
Right.
It's the one form that was invented in America. So, and it's world over recognized. So that coming into play with Indian music is something that is of enormous appeal to me. And one of the things that is very interesting between the two music is you can say they're cousins. And the reason being that the main core of their creative process is that they both rely on improvising. And so improvising means you have to create spontaneously, and that's one of the reasons why there is much more collaboration all over the world amongst Indian musicians and jazz musicians.
Correct.
And it happens a lot. So that's great. And so that stays with me a lot, the jazz ideas and folk music all over the world. When I hear the Bulgarian choir, or when I hear the Gregorian chants or flamenco, and how to say country blues.
Correct.
Those kind of stuff, bluegrass and stuff. This is music that comes from the earth of that region.
Correct.
And therefore
presented by RP Sanjeev Goenka Group, growing legacies, co-powered by Agilus Diagnostics. खुद को टेस्ट करते रहो. Green Lamb Laminates presents CNN News 18 Primetime Studio.
We're live from the CNN News 18 Primetime Studio, presented by Green Lamb Laminates. Viewers, Congress General Secretary, Member of Parliament Priyanka Gandhi Vadra carried a bag to the House today which had Palestine